Hello, this is Kenna Cable, and I will be doing my presentation on the social learning theory. So starting off, it was created by Dr. Albert Bandura. He created it on November 11th, 1976. He was born in 1925 in Alberta, Canada, and studied at the University of British Columbia. He gained a PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Iowa. Then in 1974, he became the president of American Psychological Association. He became well known for the social learning theory. He said it recognized reinforcement and the importance of observing, modeling, and imitating the emotional reactions, attitudes, and behaviors of others in learning. He is now known as the father of cognitive theory. So what is social learning theory, also known as SLT? The basis of the social learning theory is that it explains how people learn new behaviors by observing others through methods like modeling, imitation, and vicarious reinforcement and punishment. So what vicarious reinforcement is basically when you watch someone else who you're observing their behavior get positively or negatively rewarded or awarded for their actions, and you decide whether or not you want to replicate them based on that vicarious reinforcement or punishment. So relating to media specifically, people watch characters on TV and replicate them just the same as they would a real life person who they see getting a positive or negative reaction to an action. The media can amplify the social learning theory with vicarious reinforcement, emotional involvement, and nature of the content taken in. So for example, if someone is watching multiple things with violence, it's more likely that they will replicate those behaviors. The social learning theory is currently considered incomplete. Modern neuroscience implicates that we should integrate biological factors into the theory, such as inherited temperament. Right now, it doesn't take that into consideration as a foolproof part of the theory. So, four key components of the social learning theory. There's attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. Attention is where you pay attention to another person's actions and behaviors, so you need to be watching them. And retention, you have to remember what you observed when you were paying attention to them. Reproduction, you learn the thing, you must be able to reproduce the observed behavior. Motivation, you must have a motivation or incentive to perform the behavior you observed. A common motivation is seeing someone getting rewarded or praised for that behavior. So once again, the vicarious reinforcement or punishment. Here we have some strengths and weaknesses of the theory, considering both the good impacts and also the negative impacts, as well as why the theory is strong and weak in some places. So first of all, with the strengths, the effects of it can improve learning retention. It enhances your ability to communicate and collaborate with others. You're paying more attention to the effects and actions of others and perceiving them in your own way. So that helps your learning retention and communication. It is actually the most natural way to learn, observing others and replicating it. It has been proven that 90% of the things we learn is through interactions with others. So a child learns how to talk by interacting with its family around them. The theory considers the many ways to learn, for example, through watching those around you or characters in the media. So it doesn't just take into consideration one learning aspect. And then weaknesses of the theory, the main problem is accountability. People usually don't enjoy it when someone calls out their behavior as a product of their environment. They like to think that their behavior is original and they didn't learn it from someone else. So one weakness in the creation of the social learning theory is that it wasn't taken into consideration how many people will react in multiple environments, or even in a non-artificial environment. So all the solidified official studies were conducted in a lab, so there weren't any studies in real environments. So that was one weakness of the theory. Also, as I mentioned before, it doesn't consider how an individual's socialization or cultural background could affect how they learn. It doesn't really take in individuality or alterations in the way someone thinks. It also assumes our behavior is learned from experiences. Somewhat, it implies that we don't have free will to not do something bad, for example, with crimes. This is the last thing I said, what is sort of a part of the extreme thoughts of the social learning theory. People think that you don't have free will to choose what you do based on the media theories. So that's one thing that the social learning theory suggests. So considering the most relevant experiments that have proven the theory, we have the Bobo doll experiment, which was taken on by Albert Bandura himself. It was done with 72 children from ages 3 to 6 from Stanford University Nursery School, and it was divided into 3 groups. So we have the aggressive group. This was where the child would watch an adult model be aggressive toward the Bobo doll by hitting it or kicking it. Then we had the non-aggressive group. This was where the child would watch the adult model play quietly in the room and not interact with the Bobo doll at all. And then we had the control group where the children were not exposed to any adult model. So the findings of this experiment, I feel like it was pretty predictable. The children almost always replicated the actions of their adult model. So for example, if they were in the aggressive group and they saw their adult model hitting or throwing or punching the Bobo doll, they did the same when they saw it. They were individually put into these rooms where they would see how the child would interact with the Bobo doll. So as in the picture on the slide here, you can see the child punching and throwing the Bobo doll. And then, for example, in the non-aggressive group, the children would not be aggressive if they didn't see their adult model exhibit that behavior. Some implications of this experiment: children are more predisposed to the effects of social learning theory. There are definitely people who are more vulnerable. The minds of children who are still growing and learning rapidly, and the elderly. Studies show that exposure to violent content in TV or video games can increase aggressive thoughts and behaviors. Now I'm going to go over 2 stories in the news or media which have proven the social learning theory to be true or false. So the first one, this one proves that the social learning theory is true, or at least it was effective in this case, and that is the Columbine High School massacre. This was a crime committed by 2 boys, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. They were 18 and 17 years old. They killed many innocent students in a copycat crime after watching the movie Natural Born Killers. They even went as far as to dress up as the killers, as you can see in the picture in the bottom right-hand corner. One of the boys' former girlfriends reported that he wanted to copy the lead characters. She said, "He told me that he loved scaring people because it made him feel like he was finally worth something." The boys replicated how the murders happened in the film. So this is an extreme example of the social learning theory. In the film, the Natural Born Killers film, 2 people are praised and given attention for their criminal activities. After seeing the movie, the boys saw this and took it as vicarious reinforcement, like we discussed earlier. They also wanted the fame and attention given to the characters in Natural Born Killers. Many innocent students died because of this. So this proves the social learning theory to be true in this particular situation, because it has the element of vicarious reinforcement and punishment in it. The boys, Eric and Dylan, they watched the Natural Born Killers movie and they saw the characters in the movie getting that positive reinforcement or reward for what they were doing. They were killing people, robbing people, and as a result, they got popular. And the boys in this case wanted that too. So they replicated the behavior almost exactly. And it is a little bit off-putting if you think about it, how they just killed real people in a copycat crime. They reenacted what happened in the movie. And this is an effect of the social learning theory. Then we have a study that proves or suggests that the social learning theory is false. It was a study done by Oxford called Violent Video Games Found Not to Be Associated with Adolescent Aggression. So researchers at the University of Oxford found and claimed that they see no connection between aggressive behavior in teenagers and time spent playing video games. This was taken on by Professor Andrew P. and help from Dr. Netta Weinstein of Cardiff University. To complete this study, researchers asked the teenagers to complete questions on their personality and gaming behavior over the past month. So they would fill out a questionnaire about their personality, what games they play, particularly the violent ones, and how long they played it in the past month. And then the guardians or parents of the teens filled out questions about how they report their child's recent aggressive behavior. The researchers then drew up multiple linear regression models which tested whether there was truly a relationship between the regular violent video game play, which was coded by researchers, and teen aggressive behavior. The findings of the study came to show that there is no real relationship between the amount of violent video games and aggressive behavior. In this situation, the social learning theory was proven wrong because the teens are exposed to behaviors which they find fun, which could potentially be some sort of vicarious reinforcement, and they choose with their free will, which social learning theory possibly suggests doesn't exist, and they choose not to replicate those behaviors. So it's a question of why is that? Is there a lack of vicarious reinforcement or punishment which makes them decide not to, or is social learning theory just incorrect and not fully considering the elements of this case? So that's a question. But yes, in this case, the social learning theory was proven incorrect, or the researchers refused the social learning theory, which suggests that in this case, the teens should have replicated the aggressive behavior that they see in their violent video games. To conclude, it has been proven true that we use the observation of others' behavior to curate our own actions. As I said previously, in fact, 90% of our learning happens this way. Social learning theory takes this into consideration along with countless other factors, but it does fail to address some large ones. It doesn't currently address any individual's unique socializations prior to any study or their cultural background. This could definitely affect results if you think about it. If someone grows up in a different cultural background, they may be trained to react or interact differently with the media. It also, thus far, only conducted experiments in artificial environments. Real-life scenarios may have produced different results. Although that's true, today the social learning theory is still considered a work in progress. Scientists and researchers are still adding more proof and research to the theory. As I said before, the neuroscience suggests that we should add more of the biological evidence into it, like inherited temperament. So the social learning theory, although it was originally created in the 1970s, it is still being worked on today and is not completely solidified. The social learning theory can be seen happening all over the world. People replicate the things they see on the TV, the news, and now social media as well. They replicate what gets the most likes and views. So people see things, trends on the internet. This is the new most biggest thing, in my opinion, the social media. People see that and they replicate it. They gauge what gets the most interaction, what gets them the most attention. And they see that as vicarious reinforcement once again, and then they replicate that. As we discussed in the Columbine massacre, social learning theory can be extreme, so it's important to be aware of. And yeah, that's all I have. Thank you so much.